It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Some people always say to me, it's not what you say, man, it's how you say it. Well, I think the Westboro Baptist Church, not that I'm equating the two of us by any stretch, but maybe they need to just take the same advice. It's not what you say, Westboro folks, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
So maybe if you just said, we're opposed to the act of homosexuality, although we realize that everyone has a right to their own opinion, and we wish that laws will be put in place to affirm our own positions. Thank you. Have a blessed day. Maybe if they said that rather than God hates you,
yeah,
it would be a whole different subject.
If they said that, then they wouldn't make every 24-hour news circuit in the country.
And now some interesting facts about Fred Phelps, first of all, which I don't think this might not have anything to do with anything, but I didn't actually know this about old Fred Phelps, the guy that founded the Westboro Baptist Church. This was interesting. I heard this yesterday. He was actually a civil rights attorney before he became crazy Uncle Phelps. He was admitted to West Point, declined to go, so he's a smart guy, then became a lawyer, was a civil rights attorney, and was instrumental in bringing down Jim Crow laws. Then was disbarred after he kind of lost his went off his rocker a lot. And then, through the years, he's run in Democratic primaries 5 times, so he's actually a Democrat. He supported Al Gore in 1998 because Al Gore apparently made some comments that were certainly not to the level of what these guys say, but something along the lines of, homosexuality shouldn't be affirmed by society is what Al Gore said, and so Fred Phelps confirmed him because of that, or supported him because of that. So Fred Phelps, a Democrat, former civil rights activist, turned into this. So I think as far as their motivations, which are really irrelevant to the issue, but I do think obviously they are publicity whores, and it's worked wonders for them. They are definitely one of the wealthiest churches in the country.
And they're one of the smallest in the country.
They're small, they're wealthy, they're famous. And if they actually do believe what they say, which I think they do to a certain degree, they definitely are anti-gay. I mean, I believe on that end, but I don't think that they believe all the things they say around that. I don't think they actually believe.
Well, I did see an interview with one of the guys who's not, I don't think he's part of the family, but he's definitely in the church. And so I think 2020 was interviewing him. And they, at least the people that follow Fred Phelps, they're pretty into it, exactly as seen on TV. They had a daughter who thought it was a little disturbing and rather disgusting, the kind of protest and where they were protesting. So she just said to her dad one day, "Do you think this is really appropriate?" Boom, gone. Kicked her out, done. They banished her from the family. She's no longer allowed to come back to the house, no longer welcome in the church. And she's upset about it because she's like, I still love my family. I just think some of the things that they do are a little over the top.
Yeah, well, but the over the top stuff, I'm absolutely convinced, especially because anytime that there's a high profile tragedy, they show up. So obviously they're just trying to get on camera. They don't actually, there's no way they actually believe some of this, because number one, they're actually, they are intelligent. That's how they were able to manipulate the media so aptly. And like I said, the guy that founded this thing was admitted to West Point. He was a lawyer. I mean, he's not stupid.
No.
So if anyone has a little bit of intelligence, there's no way they believe all this. But they it doesn't really matter anyway if they believe it or not. That's sort of besides the point. But I do think it's an interesting fact that he was a former civil rights attorney. Now, the story is that I'm sure you've heard the Supreme Court in an 8-1 decision ruled Wednesday that members of the renegade Westboro Baptist Church have a constitutionally protected right to protest military funerals, even though their demonstrations are widely despised and deplored. The case presented the justices with a high-profile question about the breadth of the First Amendment speech and assembly protections. A majority of justices ruled that these fundamental rights outweigh the concerns of grieving family members who would rather not deal with what they say are obnoxious protesters from the Kansas church. Then it goes on. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote in his majority opinion, "Speech is powerful. It can stir people to action, move them to tears of both joy and sorrow, and as it did here, inflict great pain. On the facts before us, we cannot react to that pain by punishing the speaker. As a nation, we have chosen a different course to protect even hurtful speech on public issues to ensure that we do not stifle public debate." Samuel Alito was the only dissent, writing that the church protests simply go too far. He said, quote, "Our profound national commitment to free and open debate is not a license for the vicious verbal assault that occurred in this case. In order to have a society in which, excuse me, public issues can be openly and vigorously debated, it is not necessary to allow the brutalization of innocent victims like Petitioner. I therefore respectfully dissent. So those are very well spoken, two contrasting points of view here. Now, to me, this one is like as clean as anything. This one is as simple as pie. That's not a real phrase. It's as simple as a bag of rocks. This thing is. Obviously, this is free speech.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's no way around it. You can't. I'm sorry, you just can't. I mean, the only possible argument I could make that it's not free speech, because it is to say that this isn't really speech because they don't actually believe it. So this is just some kind of incendiary, inciting stunt. And if that were the, then you're going with the whole shouting fire in a crowded theater thing where you're only doing it. The only reason you're doing it is just to cause harm. And the precedent is already there that speech that is explicitly and only said to cause harm is actually not protected. So if you can go that route, then I could see the argument being made. But just saying the way the article writes it, that it's deplored and despicable, that's not enough.
Right.
But I do think, but then you get into the intentions behind the speaker, which you can't really, unless they tell you, it's kind of hard to do. Although sometimes if someone does shout fire in a crowded theater, we don't really ask them what their intention is. We arrest them, and we don't, if they said, well, my intention was to prove some point or whatever, we don't care. The point is that we're going to make some assumptions here that you're really just a troublemaker, and so you're going to jail for that one.
Right, and that's the assumption that they don't believe what they're saying, which I kind of agree with you. There's probably, at least Phelps, I don't think necessarily agrees 100% with what he's saying. It doesn't mean that some of the parishioners don't. But, you can yell fire in a movie theater if there's a fire in the movie theater. And if there's no way to prove that these people don't actually mean what they say, then that's a moot point, because then they actually are yelling fire and there's a fire in the movie theater. If they're saying that they believe these things and they're yelling about these things that they believe, then that's protected. And so it's not, yes, it's incendiary and it pisses people off, but if this is the truth from their perspective, then yes, you have to protect it. And another point I was thinking of when I knew we were going to talk about this is, the military pays for about $5,000 worth of a military funeral, which does kind of make it a government-funded event. I think they should pay, in reasonable terms, they should pay for the entire funeral. But that's a whole separate point. But considering it is a government-funded event, they have a right to go out and petition the government. If you read the actual First Amendment, they're kind of protected all the way through, like pretty much the entire phrase. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievance. So besides the press thing, they pretty much got the whole thing covered.
Dale texts in and says, get them for inciting a riot. Well, the only problem there, Dale, is that they didn't incite a riot. So it's also, I think, unfortunately, the people that have witnessed this have been very civil, good people. And so they're really, if everywhere these people went, there was a riot started and violence and everything, just people were freaking out and all this, then this case, I pretty much guarantee you this Supreme Court case would have gone the opposite. It would have been 8-1 opposed, because then it would have been, inciting a riot. It's insightful stuff. But really, it hasn't proven to be insightful, because all the people around these Westboro folks are, just very civil and do the right thing. The right thing is to, not saying the right thing would be to physically attack them. I'll tell you right now, and grieving families who just lost a loved one, I can't speak for what I would do in that case, because I don't know. But aside from that, if I just happened to be there and I did see this, I don't think that I would be able to stop myself from physically attacking one of them. And I would go to jail for it. I know that. Now, and I would never promote, actually, I kind of would. I think that, I'm promoting it right now, I don't care. I think that really, if you really want to stop this, then from now on, when you see these people doing this, you react physically. I'm sorry, I'm not saying kill them. I'm just saying, do what... Why? It's like if you're walking down the street with your mother and some guy across the street starts shouting comments at your mom, aren't you going to go over there and punch the guy in the face? I don't care if it's a crime. I mean, you're going to do it because because he deserves it. I mean, you're a man, and that's the way you react when someone goes that far. And so I really think that if we want to stop this from happening, I know people will put up they'll stand and they have the biker guys that follow these guys around and put up angel wings so that you can't see it, which is cool, and it protects the family, but the fact still remains that these guys make it into the news, and so they're going to keep doing it because they keep making it to the news. They keep getting funding from other racists around the country that like what these guys are doing, and I think unfortunately there's certainly not a majority, but there's a large number of people in the country, unfortunately, who like what these guys are doing, which is how they're making so much money to begin with. So to me, the only thing that would really stop this would be for just as a society for us to say, you know what, we're just not gonna put up with this anymore. So if we're gonna take it personally if you show up pulling your crap, and we're gonna take it out on you physically. Sorry, I'm not saying we bring guns and shoot you. I'm just saying that we're going to knock your old ass to the ground and tell you to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, and if we could all make a little handshake deal that if somebody does get arrested for doing something like that, we all help raise their bail money and get them out of jail and maybe help get a defense attorney for them. And, I mean, this is one of the situations that you were talking about, the bikers that line up and put up the angel wings. If we really have a problem with these Westboro ass bags, then maybe it's time that the rest of us start showing up to these funerals as well, hundreds upon hundreds of people, and just stand in front of them. If we really support our military and we want to make sure that they have a clean, peaceful funeral, then just get out there and make sure that they can't get close enough to cause any harm to the family. Because essentially what they are doing is they're saying things that hurt your feelings, but technically, the Westboro Baptist Church people, they're not throwing rocks, they're not throwing punches, they're holding hateful signs, they're yelling hateful things, but if you want to protect free speech, you got to protect these idiots as well, because there's going to be a time where you disagree with the actions of your government, you disagree with the actions of an organization, and they're going to disagree with you disagreeing with them. And so your right to go out and disagree with them has to be protected. So you have to be able to protect everyone who disagrees with everyone. Otherwise, no one's going to be allowed to petition or disagree with anything and stand out and protest. So that's why that's why it was the right decision from the Supreme Court, even though I wouldn't mind someone firebombing the Westboro Baptist Church.
Yeah, people already show up in droves to stand in front of these guys, which is a good thing. But like I said, it doesn't really, it's good. It protects the family. That's the most important thing. But if we it's not going to do anything to stop the Westboro people from showing up. At least it hasn't proven, it hasn't done that yet. So, if people just, like I said, if people were just stop being so damn good and civil about it, then maybe that would actually make a difference, because not only would you be able to get the pleasure of knocking these redneck pieces of garbage out, but also then this would actually become insightful rhetoric, and then this might make its way back to the Supreme Court eventually, and then it becomes a whole different case. So that's the only way. Now, I do, like I said, this was the right decision because it is free speech. But just because, I may support your right to say something, but that doesn't mean I won't knock you out for saying it.
Sure.
So, because I'm not in the government, I can do that. So I can say, yeah, you shouldn't be arrested for it, but I'm still going to punch you in your disgusting face for saying it.
Well, it's just like we're saying, there's consequences for everything. The consequence of free speech is that these guys are allowed to show up and do what they want, and maybe the consequence for them being allowed to show up and do what they want is that they get their ass kicked every once in a while.
And I've made it very clear before that I think that in many cases punching should not be illegal.
Yes.
That's a whole nother situation.
Grown adults.
But I do feel very strongly that punching should be illegal. Now, I did say yesterday that you shouldn't punch anyone over the age of 54. Maybe we can make an exception for Fred Phelps because he is in his 90s. So we make an exception for him. But anyone else, generally, you're 55, 54, it's a little bit too old for punching.
Well, I said 60. How old is he?
He's way older than 60. 7:43 on the Man Crank program.
It's Delmarva's Rock Radio, 93.5 The Beach.